the farmers across the country, immediately after the ordinance was brought, they had taken up protests by burning the three ordinances in different parts. More than 3,600 centers across the country, they were burned. But Punjab and Haryana farmers, they have been in the forefront, because Punjab and Haryana farmers realized that the effort to tamper with the APMC Act and the procurement mechanism is going to hit them hardest. They have the widest network of the mandi system, and also public procurement as far as paddy and wheat is concerned takes place in a big way in Punjab and Haryana. So that is one reason why they realize it hits them immediately, and that has led to this kind of a response from Punjab. You see, the government has been taking these policies. They have followed the neoliberal economic policies, whether it is the earlier Congress government or the present BJP government, now much more aggressively. And if you look at some of the developments from 2014 onwards, the corporate cronies of this government, like the Adanis, have set up big storage silos in different parts of our country, even before these acts were there. If you see, the WTO has continuously been putting pressure on the Indian government to withdraw subsidies on agriculture, food subsidies, and withdraw from public procurement as well as storage, public stockholding. In these three acts, it was also earlier articulated by the Santakumar Commission. These views were articulated by it, and these three acts actually are pushing forward that agenda. And that is why under a lockdown, when the people are kept under lockdown, they are unlocking the doors for corporate profiteering. It is very clearly at the behest of the corporate cronies that the Modi government is bringing these new laws. The narrative of the Modi government as well as the corporate media has been that it is a Punjab-centric, it's only an issue in Punjab. But if you see the protests that have been happening from June, the first week onwards, every state has been having massive protests. We have had, including jail bharo and such kind of activities. We had a Bharat Bandh call, in which if you see the response in states like Karnataka, Tamil Nadu and so on, was also extremely good response we have had. But like I said before, in terms of the mandi network or the regulated market network and the procurement that happens for food grains in Punjab and Haryana or in some other North Indian states, it is not similar in these states. So that has naturally led to a situation we need to bring to the farmers what actually is the actual intention of this government. When farmers understand that, they come out in bigger numbers. We are seeing now, for instance, from different states, from Odisha, from Bengal, from Rajasthan and from Maharashtra, how thousands of farmers have come all the way to Delhi in solidarity with the ongoing farmers movement. If you see the mobilizations that have been happening, yes, the landowning classes are there in good numbers, but also other sections are there, because this is something which is going to hit every section, not just the farmers or the landowning classes alone. Even the tenant farmers, they will be affected in big ways. The agriculture workers will be affected in big ways, and the consumers are also going to be affected very adversely by the changes that are going to come into place. The food security is going to be threatened in a big way. So you are finding in every struggle center that we are having in around Delhi, you are having the agriculture workers organizations, the working class organizations that are also coming out in support. If you see the recent mobilizations that are happening in states like Andhra Pradesh, the tenant farmers and agriculture workers are in big numbers in those struggles. That is a response we have seen in Odisha, in Bengal and other places, where the tenant farmers who are landless but who are cultivating the land of other people, they are also part of the struggle because they understand the manner in which this is going to impact their livelihoods in coming days. When the companies take up the entire, if you go into corporate contract farming, how it will displace a large part of the agricultural labor, women in a big way. So you have a solidarity emerging in which agriculture workers, Adivasis, Dalits, women, tenant farmers, the Bagher Hukum cultivators in Karnataka, all of them coming out against these three acts and the Electricity Act amendments. Chief Minister of Kerala, Pinarayi Vijayan, was mentioning about how these acts are going to affect a state like Kerala in a big way. It is because the Kerala agriculture scenario is one wherein largely about 80% and more of the cultivated area is with commercial crops or spices, coffee, tea, coconut, rubber and such crops. So in a big way, the dependence on other states for food grains is something which he was hinting at when he has spoken about it. And these other crops, whether it is spices, coffee, tea, etc., from before they have been governed by the commodity boards. You had the rubber board, tea board, coffee board, spices board, coconut development board, and so many such commodity boards which are there, which also from 91 onwards, the different governments that have come have been diluting them, starving them of funds and so on. That way the central government is trying to, because this comes directly under the central government, there have been problems which farmers have been raising regarding these crops also. Entering into free trade agreements with ASEAN and other countries, that is also leading to dumping of these products, cheap products into Kerala, which has led to price crashes. The Kerala government has tried to subsidize farmers for different crops. Huge subsidies are given through panchayats as well as the state government. There is a paddy is procured at 2,750 while the central MSP is 1868 per quintal. No other state procures at this rate. And there is also a royalty for paddy farmers. So there are these kind of efforts which is taken up by the government. Even during the lockdown period, they have come with a special package for the developing agriculture in the state, strengthening the cooperative network in the state with setting aside about 3,600 crores for that. So Kerala has a totally different agricultural scenario when compared to Punjab or Haryana or Uttar Pradesh or Andhra Pradesh and so on. So that is his statement is specifically in the context of the specific situation prevalent in the state. In Kerala, there have been indefinite protests sit-in in all districts that has been happening. All the national calls made by the United All India Kisan Sangharsh Coordination Committee and the Samyukt Kisan Morcha, they have been implemented there. And we also find that now to strengthen the struggle front here, about 1,000 farmers all the way from Kerala are coming. They will start reaching the Delhi by 14th. 1,000 farmers, when there are so many restrictions now, not easily getting transportation is a difficult thing. They are coming all the way in buses from Kerala. They will be reaching on 14th. We are also to be here. It is important to note farmers from Odisha, very distant areas, coming all the way. Farmers from Bengal, farmers from Rajasthan who are in big numbers in the Shahjahanpur border. So that way, it is actually spreading far and wide. And unlike the narrative of the Modi government and the corporate media, it is not a Punjab specific issue. It is a pan-Indian issue. It affects every Indian farmer, every Indian agriculture worker and the consumer. Actually, the Santakumar Commission is only articulating whatever the WTO, different countries like the United States and European Union, etc., have been pressurizing India. That has been articulated as recommendations by the Santakumar Commission. Santakumar was a BJP leader and Chief Minister of Himachal Pradesh. He has just articulated the dictates of the WTO. So, if you see, one is privatization of the Food Corporation of India. Repeatedly, there has been pressure on withdrawing from public stockholding to privatize this stockholding and storage facilities. So that is something which it put forward. It also recommended that any state giving a bonus more than the minimum support price, there should be no procurement from there. So that is, you see that also some states like Kerala, I mentioned earlier, it is giving about 900 rupees more than the centrally fixed MSP for the paddy growers. Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh, which were BJP ruled states at that time, were also giving some bonus, not as much as Kerala, but a slight higher than the centrally fixed MSP. So it was, this commission was recommending to stop all procurement from such states. And in the name of direct transfer of direct cash transfers and so on, how they can cut down huge thousands of crores, that is the claim that it has made. We have seen how this targeting in the public distribution system or other mechanisms like food stamps and the direct transfer of cash, how it has literally been excluding the poor in a big way. That is witnessed even in a country like ours, where though we have almost 4 times the buffer stock in our storages, we find that India's ranking in the hunger index is dismal. We are placed very dismally in the hunger index, and malnutrition deaths as well as starvation is very high. The Prime Minister has been saying that the farmers have been misled. One thing is very clear, the farmers have clearly understood that these 3 acts as well as the changes to the Electricity Act are mainly to facilitate corporate profiteering. And Adanis and Ambanis have come to symbolize as the biggest beneficiaries of the Narendra Modi-led BJP government over the last 6 years. In fact, in 2014 itself, the Gujarat farmers would tell us it is not any Gujarat model. It is Modi, Adani and Ambani's Modani model of corporate loot of Jal, Jungle, Zameen, land, water and forest resources and the mineral resources of our country. In fact, this is strongly now imprinted in the minds of the farmers and the common people of our country. That is why today you see, while there would be many other corporate entities which are also equally exploitative, these 2 houses have emerged as the main at the receiving end of the farmers' protests across the country. And if you see some interventions in agriculture, let me take the example of the Arhar dal or Tuar dal, which is cultivated in a state like Karnataka and Gulbarga in a big way. When Narendra Modi had come to power, 2014, you might recall that in the consumers had to pay, in Delhi we had to pay 220 rupees per kilo, whereas the farmers in Gulbarga who put their toil and investment, they were getting only 35 to 40 rupees a kg. And who are into this business? It is the Adanis, Ambanis, Tatas, Birlas, ITC. They are the big companies which are into this business. The huge profiteering. Often it is argued that if there is an increase in minimum support price, then it will lead to inflation. But there is such a big gap between what the farmers get and what the consumers pay. That is something which people are realizing now. And with the changes that have been brought, especially the Essential Commodity Act, there is not going to be any control on these corporate companies. That is what is going to happen. We saw the instance of 6 farmers being shot dead in Mandsaur. We visited those houses. They are all supporters of BJP. But what is the crop they were growing? They are growing garlic. The cost of cultivation according to the farmers were that 33 to 35 rupees per kg is the cost of cultivation. The BJP government claimed it is only 27 rupees a kg. Let us take 27 rupees. But in the Neemach market, farmers were getting 1 rupee. You see the thing, the expense involved, and 1 rupee was being offered to farmers. Since we are talking about the kind of profits that they are earning, super profits, or should we say vulgar kind of profits that are happening. If you take the example of coffee farmers, the farmers in Wayanad in Kerala or in Coorg in Karnataka, they are getting around 132 rupees per kg of coffee bean. Nestle Blend 37 is being sold at 12,000 rupees a kg. We can understand maybe the processing, market, the advertising charges, packaging charges, all that. But why this huge mismatch between what the farmers get and what the consumers are having to pay? It is surely Nestle Blend 37 is not something which the common masses of our country are using, but this is the manner in which they are gaining from the distress of farmers in our country. When there is a price crash in the global market, that is thrust on the farmers of our country, and when there is an improvement in prices, farmers don't benefit either. That is the system that we have. And that is where the government has to pitch in a much bigger way to ensure that there is price stabilization, ensure that farmers are getting at least 50% more than the cost of production in all crops. That is the reason why the protests are going on. These protests are not new. From 2014 onwards, the demand for MSP being fixed at C2 plus 50, that has been a demand that has been going on. But this was a promise that Narendra Modi and BJP made in the 2014 elections. They have gone back on it, and from amidst struggles itself, farmers have come up with 2 bills. One is for assured remunerative price and procurement, another for freedom from indebtedness. These 2 bills are in the parliament, but without taking any action on that, they are now coming with these 3 acts which have been passed, which is not a demand from the farmers, it is at the behest of the corporate companies. If you look at the movement from 2014, different issue-based unities have been built. Firstly, when the land acquisition ordinance was brought, we built the land rights movement or Bhumi Adhikar Andolan around the issues of land and forest rights and against indiscriminate land grab for corporate profiteering. So this saw around 300 organizations, different organizations of farmers, agriculture workers, Adivasis, Dalits, fishing community, groups like the Narmada Bachao Andolan, the NAPM and others joining hands. Surely the left Kisan organizations, agriculture worker organizations also had a significant role in this. So it was an issue-based unity. And if you look at the initial years, when we began this issue-based unity, some of the landholding organizations, they went out when we said we are also talking about the land rights and forest rights question. But that is how we have emerged in this struggle. And on the issue of the killings made in the name of Goraksha, some of the organizations initially were unwilling to take up those issues. But we stood consistent to our political position that these are issues that need to be very strongly opposed and exposed in front of the people. So in the course of the struggle, more and more organizations have come to a consensus on these issues on which they were initially unwilling to speak about in a big way. So that is a victory of this issue-based unity. While we all unite together on these issues, on many other issues there could be differences. But whether organizations are big or small, a mutual respect for each other and working together, that has led to consensus on bigger issues. After the Mandsaur incident, we formed another issue-based unity. We, in the sense, I mean all the organizations today. I am not saying it is just our organization. We were a significant player too. The All India Kisan Sanghars Coordination Committee, where now there are more than 250 organizations. So it was only on two issues. That is on the issue of remunerative price and the issue of freedom from indebtedness. However, in the course of struggles, even there has been consensus that has emerged on different issues. So left has played a major role in these building of these struggles and the present struggle. That is where the struggles in Rajasthan, struggles in Maharashtra, the Kisan Long March, that has caught the imagination of the people. It has also enthused the organizations across the country to think about taking on the government in a united manner. Nation level solidarity groups, the Nation for Farmers, for instance, in which P. Sainath and others have been involved, that is something also significant. And in states like Bihar, surely they are showcasing the withdrawal of the APMC as beneficial to the farmers, but contrary to that, the farmers in Bihar are not getting even the MSP. In the case of paddy, I mentioned Kerala gets 2750 per quintal. In Bihar, the farmers are selling between 1000 to 1200 per quintal because neither is there effective procurement by the government nor are there APMCs. So that is a situation there. Surely that is also a demand which is going to emerge to ensure that the corporate companies are not going to exploit the farmers by forcing them to sell at distressed prices. So that is there. When we have consistently taken up these issues, that has also reflected in some of the electoral gains that we have had. But one thing has to be understood very clearly when we are taking up these issues, that these are essentially genuine interventions on life and death issues of the farmers, agriculture workers and the most oppressed sections. It is not with looking into some electoral gains. It is another matter that with consistent intervention in these struggles, and when these struggles emerge victorious, that could have its own political consequences. But the primary factor which moves Kisan organizations is that on the life and death issues of the farmers, of the agriculture workers, the oppressed sections, we need to intervene in them, in these burning problems of the people in a genuine manner. That is how we have been intervening in all the struggles in the last many years. And organizations like the All India Kisan Sabha, it was started in 1936. It has a legacy of fight against the feudal landlordism, against the British imperialism, and it carries this legacy forward, now fighting against the effort to take over, corporate effort to take over agriculture in our country and finish off the Indian peasantry. The present struggle, surely it has been a historic, never before kind of a unity that we have built, and the resolute manner in which the farmers have come out in protest against these acts. If you see, it is almost 50 days now, biting cold. Also in between for almost a week, incessant rain. Despite that, you have the farmers, old, women, children, everyone sitting on protest against this. They realize that these acts, if implemented, the futures of their children are also going to be affected. So that is why they have come out in such a big way in protest, and I have been involved with different movements from as a student activist initially, as a part of the Kisan movement from 2009 onwards. In the last 30 years of my involvement in these protests and struggles, I think this kind of a struggle is I have never seen before, and that is something which even veteran leaders of the trade union and others have who have come to the struggle sites. They say it is in their lifetime this kind of a struggle they have not seen. It is also very important that this struggle emerges victorious, This unity that we have built will also move into other issues, to take up the issues of the attacks that are going on against the constitution of our country, the attacks on democracy, the issues of land rights and forest rights, the attacks on the Dalits and Adivasis of our country. These issues need to be taken up. A consensus around an alternative set of policies for agriculture, a pro-farmer agriculture policy, a pro-worker kind of a policy, universal public health, universal public education, universal social security, and universal public distribution system. That should a unity around that, and not just the farmers, working class, the youth, women, Dalits, Adivasis. A unity, a broad issue-based unity is required to usher in an alternative politics and an alternative set of policies in our country.